how to solve any percentage problem. Every percentage can be described, or any percentage problem can be described like this. An amount out of a total is equal to a percentage out of 100. It's a pair of equivalent fractions. So it's like saying if I had 3 out of 4, what percentage is that out of 100? It's 75 out of 100. Any percentage problem can come down to this. So, keeping that in view, I got 20 out of 42 on a test. What percentage is that? I don't know the percentage part, but I know the amount out of the total. So I set it up as 20 out of 42 equals the percentage out of 100. And then I rearrange to get the percentage on its own, and the resulting sum will be how I find the percentage. So I've got the percentage divided by 100. I just want the percentage on its own. You could let this be x if you wanted. Let's do it properly. X over 100. I want x on its own. How do I get rid of divide by 100? Times by 100 on both sides. So I've got 20 over 42 times 100 equals x. Grab my calculator. 20 divided by 42 times 100 is 47.62%. Guess we failed the test. And that's a bit less than 50%. Bit less than 50%. We're right. 5% of the 240 people here is how many? So 5% of 240 is how much? We go back to this. I know the percentage is 5. I know the total number of people is 240. I want to know the amount. So the amount is x out of 240 is 5 out of 100. I want x on its own. I need to get rid of this divide by 240. I times by 240 on both sides. X is 5 divided by 100 times 240. $12 people. So, as long as you remember amount out of a total equals the percentage out of 100, and very basic information about how to solve equations, this will solve any percentage question for you. You never need to remember, oh, is it times or divide by 100? I can't remember. Set it up like this and you'll be okay. It'll even solve tricky ones about finding the whole amount, although it does get a little bit trickier. 15% of an amount is 50. How much is the whole amount? Now this gets a bit problematic because the question doesn't usually say total, but this is really total. This is total. So 15% of a total is $50. That's my amount. So you remember when I say amount out of a total equals the percentage out of 100. To solve this sort of problem, the amount is 50. Out of the total we don't know, and that is 15%, so it's out of 100. So remember, amount over the total is the percentage over 100. Now to solve this, I have to admit it's a little bit trickier for an equation. You'd have to do two things. We've got to get the x up to the top first. So we times by x on both sides. 50 equals 15 over 100 times by x, and then I need to get x on its own. So I've got to get rid of this times by 15 over 100, so I'm going to divide by 15 over 100 on both sides. So I admit this one's a little bit tricky. But there it is anyway. If we just know a little bit more about solving equations, we can even do these really tricky percentage problems. So 50 divided by 15 on 100 is, oops, now when you get a funny answer like this, Remember, you can always just use your arrow key. $333. So we found the total amount. So there's all these options that we've got if we just remember this relationship.